Do you want to use Photoshop for your thumbnails but not sure how to use Photoshop? I'll show you how to use Photoshop. What's going on, guys? My name is Kyle and welcome back to the Game Department. Today, I'm going to show you how to use Photoshop to make some thumbnails. It's very easy, and I know it can be daunting the first time you use Photoshop. So stick with me, and I'm going to show you some real basics. It's not going to be the best, but it'll be something. So we're going to jump straight into Photoshop. I'll show you exactly how I make my thumbnails and how easy it can actually be. So let's just do that now. So when you open up Photoshop, this is the first thing that you're gonna see. It's very, very similar to Premiere Pro if you guys have seen my video on how to edit gaming videos, but if you haven't, this is what you see. So on your left-hand side, you're gonna have different tabs. You're gonna have a Create New or Open. So Create New is gonna give you a blank canvas, and Open is gonna open an image for you then to alter. I like to use still frames from the video that I'm creating the thumbnail for, but I've got a couple here that we can select. So I'm just gonna use this one to open and we'll make a new one. So this is my mug, I know, amazing. And what I think confuses people a lot with Photoshop is that it's got so many different things that it can do, but you don't necessarily need to use all of them. Does that make sense? You don't need to use every single tool that Photoshop has available to you. You only need to use the ones that are gonna benefit the thumbnail that you're making. So one of the first things that I like to do is I like to cut myself out and separate myself from the background. So I'll show you how to do that. It's very, very simple. If you go to the top left-hand side here, you're gonna see this little lasso. Now what I like to do is I like to do a rough outline just around the parts that I wanna separate from the background, get past all the weird curly hair, go around the side, cut underneath, and then you let go when you've connected. And that'll select that entire area. Very simple, we're doing it so far. Now what you wanna do is Control C to copy that one image. Now if you hold Control, Shift, and N, that'll bring up the new layer. So obviously there's gonna be different shortcuts for different things. I'm just telling you how I like to do it. You can also find the same thing by clicking layer and then new layer. But I like to do it with the shortcuts because it makes me feel like I know what I'm doing. So now you can see that layer 1 sits above the background. If we hide the background, all we see is layer 1. If we bring the background back, then it's underneath the first layer. So now that we've selected on layer 1, I'm gonna Control V and copy the cutout that we'd already made. So if we hide the background now, you'll see that I just have this rough cutout on layer 1. Okay, you're doing it so far and I'm very proud of you. Now the next thing we need to do is tidy up the area around and get rid of all this leaking background stuff. So you wanna click on the left-hand side here, there's this little eraser tool. Click the eraser, it'll bring up a circle. If you wanna change the kind of circle that you have, you right click, you can change the size to get something smaller, or you can drag it up and make it bigger. Completely depends on what you need. So I'm gonna put mine in the middle again, make it that nice, sort of not too big, not too small. And we're gonna cut around. So you're just gonna hold and you're gonna drag the eraser around the outside of the area. You don't wanna be too quick with it, you wanna be nice and steady. If you do make a mistake and accidentally cut out part of your shoulder, Control Z, it'll go back to the last stroke that you made. So what I suggest is don't do the whole thing without letting go of the mouse once, because if you do make it look nice and pretty and you don't let go of the mouse and make it look nice and you think you're happy with the way that it looks, take off most of my arm there accidentally, and then you slip and you accidentally take out my shoulder. When you click Control Z, it'll go back everything. So little strokes, little holds, and that way if you have to go back, it's only this tiny little section that you have to go back on instead of the entire thing. I hope that makes sense. So we're gonna tidy it up, make it look a little bit neater. We wanna make sure we can get all of that background out of there. The hair is always tricky, especially if you've got slightly longer hair like I do. It gets a little curly and wispy. You've either gotta make the decision to get in there nice and close and be real fine about it, or you just make it look like you have a bowl cut. I don't know, that's not my decision, that's yours. It depends on how you want your thumbnail to look. If you do want to go nice and close, you can push Control and then the plus icon, and what that'll do is that'll zoom in and then you can look at my chin. So don't say I don't give you anything. So if you want to zoom in, you can go nice and close, and now you can see obviously the eraser tool is way too big for the area. So you right click it, drag down your size to something a little bit more manageable, and then you can get in there and get all the tiny little fine details and just make it look a little bit neater. And then there you go. Obviously, I'm not gonna do that because it's not a thumbnail. This is just a video. So what you wanna make sure is you wanna make sure that there's no harsh points. It has to be nice and rounded, because what we're gonna do is outline that. And if it's all super harsh and the points are pretty intense, then it's gonna look a bit funky. I'll show you what I mean. So we're gonna go back out, and there you go. We've got a Kyle that's completely separate from the background. You can see the hair, all the wispy parts on this little, I just pointed to the screen like you guys can see me point to the actual screen. So you can see here on the sides of my head that I've cut a little bit of the hair off. It'll just help get an outline. It's not going to be perfect, but you get the gist of how to do things. So we're going to keep the background enabled. Now what I like to do is I like to get this tool here, which is the top left. This is the move tool. So you can drag and move different things around depending on what you want to do. I want to keep it in line with what I have for now. But if you go down to the background, I like to right click, go convert to smart object. And what you can then do is add different filters and you can change the background without it just being a background. So I'm going to like to go filter, I go blur gallery, and field blur. Now what that does is that you can see it adds a bit of a bokeh effect, a bit of a blur effect to the background. Depending on how you want it, depends on you. So make your artistic decision. I like to just drag the heck out of it and make it super blurry so I'm completely separate from the background because I like to add a couple of different effects. So you click OK at the top, that'll render, you're good to go. I like to get the move tool, click on layer 1 and drag me separate to where I was. The reason that I make the background so blurry is it means I can move me anywhere on the frame and it doesn't look that out of place because you sort of lose the ability to identify where I am in the original background because there's so much blur on it. So while we still have layer 1 clicked, I like to go Control T, and what that'll do is that means you can change the size, change the rotation, you can change a bunch of different things with the object that you're working with. I like to just make it a little bit bigger. And what I can do then is I can line up exactly where I want to be within that frame. I'm probably going to keep it on that left-hand side, and then we can start adding other things like text and shapes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. So again, Control-Shift-N, layer 2. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and I like to add these little rectangles in colors just to make it look a little bit different. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to get that move tool again, Control-T to make sure I can transform the way that it looks. And then I like to rotate it and bring it into the frame. So I'm probably gonna do something like this. Yeah, I like that. I like the way it looks. But obviously, now you can't see anything because there's a white rectangle on top. You wanna go here to the right-hand side, you wanna drag rectangle underneath layer 1. So what that means is your background's gonna be on the bottom, rectangle 1 will be on top of that, and then me at layer 1, I'll be on top of that. So it stacks. That's the only thing you need to think about. Everything stacks. The lower you are on the list, the lower you are in the image. The higher on the list, the higher on the image. So if you're at the top of this list, you're on top of the image. Now I know what you're thinking. Kyle, that white rectangle looks a bit stupid. I would completely agree. So we're going to change the color and make it a bit more appealing to the eyeballs. So we're going to click this rectangle 1, double click it. It's going to bring up a color picker. Now you want to choose what sort of color you want. I have some blues and some purples in the background here. So sometimes it can be the better decision to blend it with the background. Maybe go something like a softer blue, depending on what you want to sort of go for. It depends on what your subject is. So right now I have a darker bit of clothing on. I'm not overly exposed, so going a lighter color might be beneficial. But what I might do is I might go like a purple and I might make it a little bit darker. And what that does is sort of helps blend with these two colors. I don't want the shape itself to stand out. I want me to stand out and I want the text to stand out. This is just to make it look a little bit more appealing. So the next thing on the list is we're gonna do an outline around me. We're gonna outline me because that's the next step. That's the next step. I can't think of anything witty. That's the next step. So we're gonna right click layer 1. We're gonna click select pixels, and that's gonna do a pixel outline of everything around us that we've cut out from that earlier image. Now at the top here, you can click select, you can click modify, and you wanna go to expand. So we're gonna expand it by let's say 10 pixels. That'll give us a nice thin line around us. Do you know what? We might even go a little bit more. So select, modify, expand. We'll do it by another 10 pixels. And you can see here, it's gonna give us a gap right between where we are and 20 pixels outside of that. Depending on what sort of resolution your image is gonna depend how far that pixel actually is. This is shot in 4K, so the screen grab itself is a 4K image, which means it's gonna take more pixels to fill that space. That makes a bit more sense. If it's a 1920 by 1080 image or a 1080p image, there'll be less pixels needed to get to that thicker line. But it's all experimentation. You try, doesn't work, Control Z, try it again. Very simple. So now that we have our outline ready to go, you want to Control Shift N to make a new layer. We're going to click Enter. Now we have layer 2. So I'm going to put layer 2 underneath us, and essentially layer 2 is going to be the white outline around. So the best way that I've found to do it is I click the paint tool and make it a white color with this little color selector at the top right hand side. And then I like to click the gap right in between me and the line. So right here, keep clicking it to fill the space. And now you have a solid white line around. You're gonna click select, deselect, so that'll get rid of those jittery lines. And there you go. You have a nice white outline around the subject that you're talking about. If you wanna see what it looks like without you there, you click it, and there's just a white blob. And then you're on top, and it's a white outline. So let's say you want to move your subject and the outline together. If you click the move tool and try and drag this, it'll only move me. Go back to where it was. If we have layer 2 selected, it's exactly the same deal when we grab them independently. So what I'd suggest to do, have layer 1 selected, hold control, click layer 2, and that means they will both move together and they're snapped together in the same position. So now if we click Control T, you can move them both together, you can resize them, you can do whatever you want, and they're both gonna do it at exactly the same rate, which makes it a lot easier instead of having to do both layers individually and trying to line it up again. Easy peasy as squeezy lemons. Now the next thing is gonna be to add the exciting text. So what are we gonna do? Exactly the same thing. Create a new layer, and how do you do it? Exactly, Control-Shift-N. I'm not trying to make this an episode of Dora the Explorer, just trying to help, all right? So we're gonna click layer 3, now you have layer 3. Again, want to make sure that your layer is on top if you want it on top of the image. To add text, you want to click the little T for text. You're going to click it. You want to click on the image, and there you've got a little text box. It's all highlighted, so you can start to type and fill in what you want to do. We're going to call this thumbnail Photoshop stuff. There we go. Good job, Kyle. Now you've got your text. You can do whatever you want with it. You can manipulate it in whatever way. You can Control T to change the size, change the rotation. You get the vibe. You understand what I'm trying to say. So what I like to do is make a black outline, exactly the same we did with this handsome devil here, but we do it with the text. So you do exactly the same thing. Right click on text, click select pixels. Now I want it to fill in all the weird parts of the O's and the S's and that sort of stuff. So I'm gonna click modify, gonna click expand, and let's say 50 pixels. And now you see here, it's got a nice thick outline around everything. We're gonna click the paint tool. We're gonna select black, so it stands out and makes the text pop. We're gonna Control-Shift-N to make a new layer. This layer again is gonna be underneath the text, so it has the outline underneath the image. And then we're gonna click the gap, click the difference until it makes it pop. And there you go, you have a black outline. Now I understand what you're saying. There's these weird little holes in the O's, easy fixed. You click the pencil tool on the left-hand side here, you make sure black is still selected, and same deal. If you want a bigger size pencil, you drag the slider, you make it a little bit bigger, make it a little bit smaller. I like to have it just there, and then you click, and you just paint over the little areas that you want to fill in, and there you go. Now, tell me, plain and simple, easy squeezy lemons. Easy squeezy lemons. So, hell yeah. Now with a thumbnail like this, you can see that there's a little bit of area down the bottom. I like to add images, like reference images. So if I'm talking about software, I'll add that software's logo. If I'm talking about a specific brand, the brand logo will go there. Completely depends on what the context of the video is. For the argument of this video, obviously it's about Photoshop. So I'm gonna get a logo from Photoshop, and I'm gonna put it in the corner. I've downloaded a Photoshop logo PNG. If you wanna find them, you Google exactly the same thing. Such and such, logo, PNG. It's very easy. You can find it pretty much everywhere. So I've got this in a downloaded folder. I'm gonna drag it from the folder and I'm gonna place it on the Photoshop file. That's literally it. It'll create its own layer with the PNG logo. I'm gonna drag it to be a better size. I'm gonna put it right here, and there you go. You know how to do the basics, and that's easy. So make thumbnails. Now in all seriousness, this is pretty much the basics that you need. You know how to move stuff, you know how to cut things out, you know how to use the pencil and the eraser and the paint bucket, and you know how to select the pixels. If you know how to do these things, you can pretty much experiment with whatever you want, as much as you want, until you find a style that you like. These are not the way my thumbnails are gonna look forever. I'll probably use them for the next couple of months and then change it to something else. Or if I'm really, really happy with it, I'll probably keep it. But it's something that you need to practice and try different things, and maybe you'll find one that you really like, maybe you won't. You may have to just keep trying, but it's completely up to you. And the more you experiment and the more you try, the higher the chance you have of finding a style that you like. So let's say you finish a thumbnail, you love the way it looks, you wanna export it as a whole file, you wanna click File up the top left-hand side here, go to the Export tab, click Export As, and this is the simplest part. You're gonna have a bunch of different options. You can choose the format, the quality, it'll show you how big the file size is, what the resolution of that image is. If you want to export it as a PNG, because it might have a transparent background for whatever you're using it for, you can do that as well. Once you have your settings dialed in, click export, you pick where you want it to go, you rename it, click save, and that's it. It will export to that one location, and now it's there. If you have any questions on what we did, please ask me. I'm more than happy to help out. I answer every comment that I can. And if I skimmed over something too quickly or I didn't explain something well enough, please let me know and I'll help you as best as I can. If you want to come and join us anywhere else, we stream on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I'll leave a link to that in the description. Come and check it out. May even have some fun. If Discord is more your vibe and you want to join us on Discord, we have a great bunch of people in our community. We talk about games, we talk about memes. They ridicule me regularly. So if that's something you want a piece of, I'll leave a link to our server in the description. If you want to find us anywhere else like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all you have to do is search the game department. You'll pretty much find us everywhere. Other than that, I'm going to leave you to it. I hope you had a good morning. I hope you have a good night. Bye!